سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحلوا شعائر الله ولا الشهر الحرام ولا الهدي ولا القلائد ولا آمين البيت الحرام يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا وإذا حللتم فاصطادوا ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beginning of Surah Al-Ma'idah has mentioned that and is moreover ordered that we must fulfill all pacts and covenants, fulfill all of our oaths and obligations. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions some specifics which have a context from the time of Nubuwah, but of course the overriding principle continues until the day of judgment. O you who believe, again, the call to the people of Iman, and as we've mentioned so many times, this is always the call to something extremely significant and a general principle that we need to take very, very careful cognizance of. لا تحلوا شعائر الله. Do not violate the sanctity of the sha'air. Sha'air is jamma sha'ira. Sha'ira is basically the symbols, the signs, the sort of themes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has established through the various actions and the various injunctions of deen. For example, adhan is a sha'ira. Now actually it is a sunnah mu'akkada. But if a people, for example, of any place, they say, no, we're not going to call adhan. It's only sunnah. Why bother ourselves and others? So it's mentioned in the books of fiqh that the imam of the Muslims should fight with those people until they establish it, because you have negated something which is a symbol of Islam. Adhan is a very symbol of Islam, right? The various ibadat and the various things, that even for example, the symbols of Islam, the men have beards. That is a symbol of Islam. We don't want to get too deep into that discussion, but it is. It's a symbol of Islam. So somebody says, no, it's not. So this is so all of these things which are that are connected to deen, they have a significance to deen. These are called sha'ir. So don't violate these things. And in this context, this is in a general umbrella concept. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions specifics, and it also is correlated with a number of events that took place at the time of Nubuwah. Wala shahr al-haram. So don't violate the sanctity of all of the various signs and symbols of deen of Allah, which are the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His deen. And specifically, the month of haram, in other words, the months of haram, the months which are not to be violated, which were the months of sanctity, which were Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah and Muharram and Rajab. And this was from the very ancient times, and that continued through Islam, up to Islam. وَلَا الْهَدْيِ وَلَا الْقَلَائِدِ. And also the sacrificial animals and the qala'id. The qala'id are basically the garlands that they would place on the sacrificial animals, particularly the camels that would be driven towards the Bayt of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the time of Hajj, or at any time for that matter, for the sake of sacrificing in the precincts of the Haram. Now this was also established very long ago. Also the remnants of the Millat Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the Arabs were actually, even though they had entered polytheism into their beliefs, but some of these were also sha'ir of Islam and sha'ir from the Millat of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so that being the case, these also have a significance and should be honored. So whether it is Muslims or others at that particular point in time, these should be honored and they should not be violated, you know, whether those are in the hands of Muslims at that time or in the hands of anyone. It's also noteworthy that actually, it's interesting that the Bani Israel also, the Jewish community used to also perform Hajj. They used to come to Bayt Allah. And they used to consider that the far temple, you know. And, but however, when the Arabs became more, you know, emerged and immersed in polytheism, then they gave up actually performing Hajj. But they used to actually do that. So that is, you know, from time immemorial. So, the Muslims are told not to violate and not to, you know, to accost any such type of situation within the months of Haram, and also the sacrificial animals. Now, the context is that, of course, as we probably know, that Rasulullah saw in the dream that he's going to perform Umrah, and he, with 1,000 of his people, they set out in the 6th year of Hijrah to perform Umrah, and they were stopped by the Makkans. And this is highly reprehensible, even to the Arabs, even to the polytheists. You can't stop anyone who wants to make Umrah or Hajj. That's not to be done, but they did it anyway. And it was a very tough test for the Muslims. However, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, under the instruction of Wahi, kept his hands at bay and agreed to a pact, which ultimately turned out to be a Fath Mubin, a open victory. And in that context, sort of Fath was revealed. However, it was a very sour pill to swallow because there was very tough conditions. In any case, there remained, of course, animosity in the hearts of the Muslims at how they dare stop us, even though Nabi agreed to their terms and they went back to Makkah. Now, in the meantime, another incident took place, that another fellow came to Medina Munawwara, and his name was Hatib ibn Hind, and he was from Quraysh, and actually he was a businessman. He came there for business, and so for the sake of good PR, you know, he found that he had become a Muslim, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ and said that I'm very interested in Islam, and so forth and so on, whereas Nabi ﷺ knew very well by revelation that he was a hypocrite, and that he was actually speaking with the tongue of shaitan, and that he was actually involved in deception and treason, and take care about this individual. In any case, after he left, he had left his things, his baggage and his property outside of Medina with his helpers. And then after leaving from the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he grabbed all of the camels of the Muslims that were grazing outside of Medina, took them and ran off with them. So by the time it came to light that what he has done, they chased him, but he was gone and he escaped. Now, the next year, in the 7th year of Hijri, so now part of the agreement is that they are not going to, the Muslims are not allowed to enter Makkah that year, but they may come the next year. So the Quraysh could show that, you know, we're an authority. We let you come, we stop you. It's up to us. Fair enough. So now in the 7th year, the Rasulullah is coming, and they're reaching to Makkah. And so the Sahaba hear somebody making talbiyah, and he's got all these sacrificial animals. It happens to be the same Hatim. He's also performing Umrah, and he's got all these camels that he stole from Medina, and he's made them into sacrificial animals. So what's this? So obviously they want to grab this fellow and, you know, take him out and take their property back. So no, can't do that. He's in Haram. He's in the precincts of Haram. Keep your hands back. Don't accost thee. And here's the context, you know. So don't, you know, you cannot, you know, touch, you know, these are the sacrificial animals. This is the holy precincts. This is someone in Ihram. So regardless, we're just going to have to leave it. And then also, ultimately, in the 8th year of Hijrah, then the Fath of Makkah, and now Makkah is conquered, and now these same people who stopped them and have been fighting with them and have been killing them and torturing them all these years, now also they come and they want to perform Umrah and Hajj, and so some of the Muslims thought, well, this is our chance, let's take them out, you know, retaliation. No, not to be done. And there, in that context, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not, violate the sanctity, even though these people might still be polytheists, but the fact that they are engaged in something which is also part of Islam, and it still has that stamp of sanctity from its origin, and that actually they used to also say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. They used to say talbiyah, but they used to add la sharika illa sharika lak. There's no partner except some partner that you have made. Well, there was no partner, so that was an innovation. But still, they were considering themselves, performing this Hajj to the bait of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so forth. And so initially they were allowed to continue. Not only they were allowed to continue, but they were also protected. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and these people, they want, according to their understanding, even though it was faulty, they يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ وَرِضْوَانًا, and they are thinking that this is something they will please their Lord with. So don't touch them or their animals. وَإِذَا حَلَلْتُمْ فَاصْطَادُوا. And the other thing is that, as we mentioned yesterday, when you're in the state of ihram, you're not allowed to hunt, or if you are in the precincts of the haram. So these two, whether you are in the state of ihram or you're in the precincts of the balad al-haram, you're not allowed to hunt. However, once you've come out of the state of ihram or you have left the precincts of haram, then you may go ahead and hunt. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَانُ قَوْمٍ أَنْ صَدُّكُمْ عَنِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ أَنْ تَعْدِلُوا. And don't let the fact that these people or anyone has stopped you, and there's enmity between you because of the fact that they had actually stopped you from entering into the Masjid al-Haram, which was a great thing. It was a terrible thing that they did. However, don't let that carry you into aggression yourselves. Even though they were aggressors, don't let that carry you into aggression and tyranny. This is the beauty of Islam. We don't perpetrate aggression to anyone, even our enemies. Even if we're in the state of war or we have a pact of truce, if we want to break that truce, we have to announce to them. فَانْبِتْ إِلَيْهِمْ عَلَى السَّوَاءِ. So, subhanAllah. So war crimes, we're the first people that have really established, these principles and justice and equity. So don't let this happen, that, enmity should carry you into further, atrocities and into further injustice. You don't meet an injustice with an injustice, you counter injustice with justice. That's what. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. And moreover, help one another in birr and taqwa, and don't help one another in tyranny and wrongdoing and enmity. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very severe in punishment. This also takes us to another extremely important and very comprehensive principle, ta'awunu ala al-birri wa taqwa, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Subhanaka wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. So inshallah, as we mentioned, from 6:45 salat will take place, and takbir will start, and preparations will start. And all of those who have not done so, you might take the opportunity to follow the sunnah of taking some dates. We still have, I think, a lot of dates. And you can have dates. I think Abdul Badi Sahib has made tea also?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. So we can also have that sunnah before, actually. We can just go out and then have it, and we come back to the masalla, and we're, mashallah.
Okay, few brothers can come here. We need few to pick this up. This is really heavy. And open this door. Take this out.
We need some.
This will go out.
Where will you lead the prayer?
Huh?
Where will you lead the prayer? Outside?
Yeah, outside.
Outside.